Well, everyone, I said I'd do it, didn't I? Yep, this video will be a bit longer since I'll go over every single assassination attempt, which there have been far more of than actually successful assassinations, obviously. But with that being said, let's just jump right in. Now, I could start off with the time that Washington thought he was being poisoned by tomato soup from Tomato Town, which I could maybe make a video on, but I decided to go with a really serious assassination attempt. Andrew Jackson was walking outside, and suddenly a painter by the name of Dick Lawrence attacked him with two different pistols, both of which misfired, giving Jackson the ability to retaliate by beating him senseless with a cane. Dick Lawrence was from England, but spent most of his life in America. He creepily started to observe Jackson in order to find the perfect place to murder him. He had planned to shoot Jackson during a funeral procession, but ended up deciding to wait longer until Jackson was more vulnerable. According to experts, the chances of both of these pistols misfiring was 125,000 to 1, meaning Jackson was quite lucky not to be easily shot at point-blank range, which would most definitely have ended his life. Though Jackson believed the attempted murderer wanted him dead for political reasons, it was found in court that Lawrence was mentally ill and thus found not guilty due to insanity. As a result, he spent the rest of his life in asylums. And this is really quite a fascinating case due to how close it was to being more than an attempt, and due to a butterfly effect, that chance of 125,000 to 1 could have had some major impacts if it didn't sway to the 1. Lincoln was the first president to have multiple assassination attempts, including the most famous one that was much more than a failed plot. But the first case that wasn't successful was during his way to D.C. to be inaugurated. The Baltimore plot was allegedly conducted to murder the president-elect before he got into power. This was likely conducted by angered slave owners who despised Lincoln for his stances against the spread of slavery to new territories. Alan J. Pinkerton, a Scottish-American spy, and his detective agency coordinated to save the president's life. The other attempt was years later, when Lincoln was riding on horseback outside, and all of a sudden had his hat shot through by a lone sniper rifle bullet. The culprit was never identified, but it must have been quite horrifying for Lincoln. This was the first attempt to actually wound the president, and while 3 of the 4 successful murders had already occurred, including for Roosevelt's boss just before, this was truly an incredible story of survival. This was also the first to occur while the victim was not president, but actually while he campaigned for the Bull Moose Progressive Party in 1912. The owner of a saloon attacked him in Milwaukee. Roosevelt was just about to give a speech when a man all the way from New York named John Fleming Shrunk, who had been stalking him, shot him in the chest. Luckily, the speech, as well as other objects in his shirt pocket, slowed the bullet and he survived. The culprit was apprehended, and the police planned to horrifically punish him for this action. But Roosevelt, the victim of all people, fought tooth and nail so that Shrunk was not hurt. It is an inspiring, shocking, and surprising story that, honestly, I'm really shocked Hollywood hasn't made a mediocre movie about. But it gets even better, because Roosevelt gave the speech. Yeah, he was very badly wounded, yet still delivered the 50-page, riveting speech and refused to stop and get help. Shrunk claimed that William McKinley, whom Roosevelt was vice president under, had told him in his dreams to avenge his death by murdering Roosevelt. This is truly one of the most detailed, recounted, and shocking attempts out there. During a historic meeting with Mexican President I don't know how to pronounce, Diaz, a man was caught holding a pistol who was very close to the position of Taft and Diaz. He was apprehended and failed in his plot. This is one of the least detailed attempts for a non-living president, as almost no details are known. The attempted murderer's name, the words of the victims, and the fate of the aggressor are all unknown to the public. During a train ride through Chile, President Herbert Hoover had a chance of dying. An Italian-born anarchist named Severino di Giovanni and a group led by him planned to blow up the train, but failed. They were not successful, and the man meant to bomb the train was arrested. Giovanni himself was not caught for this incident, but was instead executed at the age of 29. Hoover actually wasn't frightened after hearing about it, and his only words on the matter pertained to his wishes that his wife didn't hear about the incident. While in Miami, Florida, the president-elect Franklin Roosevelt was fired at 5 times. Well, kind of. An Italian bricklayer and World War I veteran named Giuseppe Zangara fired a gun 5 times and killed the mayor of Chicago. It's unknown if he wanted the president-elect or the mayor, but under the circumstance of the former, he failed to wound his target. There is an interesting theory that he was collaborating with Al Capone to kill the mayor, who was likely wanted by Capone because he led a crackdown on Capone's crimes. Roosevelt was also possibly planned to be murdered by Nazi German collaborators when he was attending the Tehran Conference in Iran in 1943, but the only proof of this is the word of a Soviet NKVD. During the 1947 insurgency in Palestine, a group known as the Stern Gang attempted to murder Truman. The Stern Gang was a group dedicated to the Zionist ideology, which believes in the establishment of a Jewish state. Avraham Stern founded the group based on these beliefs, and in 1947, they sent letter bombs to the president. These bombs were discovered by British intelligence, and then the Secret Service disarmed them. Truman was subject to another attack in his second term, which was carried out by 2 people who associated themselves with the Puerto Rican independence movement. Oscar Collazo and Griselio Torresola attacked the Blair House, where Truman was staying, and killed 2 White House police officers. Leslie Kofelt and Joseph Downs both died defending Truman, while another officer was badly injured. Truman survived without any injuries and was furious at the fear he was put in. The men put behind the attempt were placed under the death penalty, but were not executed due to President Jimmy Carter pardoning them. Richard Paul Pavlick was a postal worker and World War I veteran from New Hampshire who despised those with the Catholic religion. As the first Catholic president, Kennedy was hated by Pavlick. Pavlick had put dynamite in his truck and wanted to crash it into Kennedy's car. He decided that it would be wrong for him to carry out his plot after he saw Kennedy say goodbye to his wife and child. He ended up being criminally indicted for his actions and plans, and he was kept in a mental hospital for about 3 years until being freed. It is actually quite shockingly one with a happy ending, at least in terms of the attempt itself. The man decided not to murder the president because of seeing his family, which showed he was a bit more thoughtful. My favorite Futurama character had the most failed attempts against him yet, totaling up to 3 known plots. The first involved a man named Arthur Bremer, who was mentally ill and planned to kill the president by shooting him. The man decided it would be too difficult to get around security and thus targeted former governor of Alabama and last third-party candidate to ever win an electoral vote, George Wallace. He paralyzed Wallace and wounded multiple other bystanders in this attack, and would likely have wounded Nixon if not for the security. Another assassination attempt occurred in Tehran, yet unlike the first one, this one is proven. Nixon had planned to visit the mausoleum of Reza Shah, a former emperor of Iran. The mausoleum was destroyed in a bomb explosion, and Nixon would likely have been in the explosion if not for being 45 minutes late. The group that was involved in the incident was the self-proclaimed Marxist organization's People Mujahideen of Iran. The final attempt was possibly the most bombastic yet. A depressed father of 4 with mental issues named Samuel Bick was behind the plot to hijack a plane and crash it into the White House. Holy crap. This was an absolutely crazy plot that ended up failing due to the wood blocks on the wheels of the plane. He killed one of the pilots, injured the other, and murdered a Maryland aviation administrator. He tragically then killed himself and failed to get the plane to take off. As a president, I doubt many people would think of very often, Ford certainly had some of the most famous attempts against his life. Ford reached out to shake a woman named Lynette Fromm's hand when she pulled a pistol on him and attempted to fire. She was a member of the Manson family, a cult led by infamous murderer Charles Manson. She had bullets, but none of them were in the fire chamber, and so Ford was not wounded, nor was he killed. She was arrested, but then released in 2009. In the same month as the last attempt, another woman named Sarah Jane Moore fired at the president, but her arm was grabbed by a nearby man, and the bullet failed to hit Ford. She was also placed in prison, but released in 2007. Interestingly enough, these two women are the only known female attempted assassins of a U.S. president. And they both acted out their attempts on the same president in the same month. An Ohioan unemployed man named Raymond Lee Harvey was found holding a pistol near where President Jimmy Carter was to hold a speech. Harvey claimed to be working with 3 other men, but only one of them was identified. This could have been a lie because Harvey was mentally ill. Carter was also subject to another plan involving John Hinckley Jr., who went on to be involved in another attempt, but during this one he decided to quit and not go through with his goal of killing the president. In 1981, John Hinckley Jr. was involved in a much more detailed crime. He opened fire on the president, injuring him and 3 others. President Reagan nearly died from this wound, but ended up recovering at a hospital and surviving. James Brady, Tim McCarthy, and Thomas DeLanty were also injured, and despite surviving, a bill was passed known as the Brady Bill, which required a 5-day background check for firearms. Hinckley claimed his motivation was to impress an actress named Jodie Foster, and he was deemed mentally ill. He was eventually released from an institution in 2016. After losing to Bill Clinton in the 1992 election, President Bush was to visit a university in Kuwait. 14 men from Kuwait and Iraq planned to smuggle bombs into the president's car and kill him with a car bomb. The plot failed, and President Clinton responded by firing a cruise missile on an Iraqi intelligence building. In 1994, while President Clinton was jogging outside, a freelance writer had planned to kill him. Not much else is known, and the notable attempts of recent presidents are, for the most part, uninteresting, so I'll go through them quickly. In the same year, an alcoholic truck driver attempted to crash a plane into the White House. He ended up crashing into a tree, and he completely failed to cause any concern among the Clintons because they weren't even home when he carried out his plan. He died in the crash, but didn't hurt anyone else. About 2 months later, a man fired almost 30 automatic shots thinking he hit Clinton, but Clinton wasn't even outside on the lawn where the criminal thought he was. So he was quickly tackled and failed to hurt a single person. In 1996, while visiting the Philippines, the president was going to drive over a bridge. It ended up having a bomb planted under it and was possibly the closest that any of these attempts against Clinton ever came to wounding or killing him. The most interesting part was, however, that the man behind the bomb was in fact the infamous leader of Al-Qaeda and the orchestrator of 9/11, Osama bin Laden. The final attempt occurred in 2018, a long time after Clinton was in power, but a pipe bomb was sent to the residence of the Clintons' home. Interestingly, it was actually meant for his wife Hillary, but she wasn't at home. The bomb was intercepted and promptly not successful. It was actually part of a plot in that year that involved 16 mail attacks addressed to leaders of the Democratic political party almost every day in late October 2018, very close to the midterm elections. People involved in the Democratic Party were plotted against, as well as the headquarters of CNN, which received a bomb as well. Technically, the first assassination attempts against President Bush were the attacks on September 11th. While it is widely known that 2 planes were hijacked and crashed into the World Trade Center's Twin Towers, along with one into the Pentagon building, which killed almost 3,000 people, it is less widely known that a 4th plane also crashed. If the flight weren't delayed by the time it was, the plane might just have been the most infamous. The plane was hijacked, but since the passengers knew of the events that had occurred, they took back the plane and eventually crashed it into a field in Pennsylvania. It was originally going to be crashed into the Capitol and would most likely have killed the president. After this, in 2005, a man with affiliations to the Georgian Revival Party named Vladimir Arutyunian held a grenade in his handkerchief. President Bush was meeting with the Georgian president, and the likely politically motivated attack commenced. The grenade was wrapped too tightly in the handkerchief, though, and failed to detonate. The final attempt occurred in late 2008, during the transition period to the next president, Barack Obama. Bush was meeting with the Iraqi president when an Iraqi journalist threw both of his shoes at the president, nearly hitting him. Bush ducked and avoided both shoes, which likely saved his life from the would-be lethal attack. The same month as the mass shoeing that shocked the nation, President Barack Obama had his planned assassination attempt before his inauguration. A 20-year-old Marine wrote a letter with intent to kill the president, in which he claimed he would, quote, defend the country from any domestic threat. A few months later, a Syrian man and 3 others planned to stab and kill the president. And they even went as far as to forge journalist credentials. 2 years after this, a man unleashed bullets upon the White House, most definitely trying to murder Obama, and then he ended up failing. But he did succeed in terms of murdering a poor window and getting locked up for years. After this, a poison-laced letter was sent to the White House, but obviously failed, and the final attempt against the president was in 2018, as he was one of the targets of the pipe bomb attacks. Before even becoming the Republican nominee officially, a British man was caught with a pistol and attempted to attack the then candidate at a rally in Las Vegas. Then, about a year after winning the election, a man associated with ISIS had wanted to kill Donald Trump while he attended an ASEAN summit in the Philippines. The next attempted murder was carried out by a Navy vet named William Clyde Allen III, sent a multitude of poisoned letters to the president and to government officials, and he was arrested as a result. Just like Obama, Trump's final assassination attempt was carried out by the uses of rice-and-lace letters, which were sent to his residence as recently as September of 2020. Well, there you have it, a full documentation of every recorded attempt on a U.S. president's life that I could find, with as many details as I could provide. I could discuss presidents who died with conspiracy theories that they were murdered at a later date, if that sounds interesting, but for now I'm gonna go get some sleep, since I've been reciting every presidential assassination for days now, and I need medical attention.
Smashing idea, man.
Look out! Oh! That really hurt!